and then hear from you. And it's, this isn't a specific feedback session on any sort of particular OFJ policy or program, but I want to hear from you on your priorities as critical partners in the work of OFJ and the city more broadly around food justice, on your priorities, on our direction of travel collectively, things we should be focused on, potential areas for improvement. I want to hear from you guys on how things are going. And where we should go together. And then, as Kawana mentioned, this is the beginning of this is the virtual ones that are organized by theme, and I'll be getting out into the neighborhoods this fall. And so, if folks are interested in in-person meetings or in showing me things or project visits, I'm happy to add those on the calendar. So, just as way of sort of personal background, I grew up in Newton, so I grew up in Greater Boston. Did my undergraduate work in public policy and international relations with a focus on the environment down in Rhode Island at Brown University. And coming out of undergrad, worked for the Environmental Protection Agency in Washington, and was in a policy function there, but also had stints on Capitol Hill and doing lead paint enforcement up here in Boston. Came to really refine my interest in sustainability and the built environment in my time at EPA, and went back to graduate school at the University of Michigan to get a dual degree, an MBA and a Master of Science in Sustainable Enterprise from the University of Michigan. And then returned to Boston to work in real estate development with a focus on sustainability in the built environment. So worked for Boston Properties and working on projects in Boston and Cambridge predominantly, while simultaneously building up their sustainability reporting and strategy and implementation programs. Most notably in Boston, I got to work on Atlantic Wharf down on the Fort Point Channel and all of the public realm amenities and historic preservation aspects and green projects, or green aspects of the project, which at the time was the first LEED Platinum high-rise building anywhere in New England. And was doing that and really enjoying it when Mayor Menino called and asked me to join his cabinet for the first time. So I joined as the Chief of Environment, Energy, and Open Space in 2012 under Mayor Menino. And as Elise and I have gotten to know each other in this new office's remit, OFJ obviously didn't exist in its current form, but I did have the opportunity back then to work on some of the early foundational work around urban ag. So the urban agriculture zoning work actually fell within my cabinet, and thinking through the issues of how do we make it easier for folks to have bees, and how to make it easier for folks to have chickens, and what were the policies in the neighborhoods to allow to thread that needle on urban ag zoning and allow people to participate and have an easier and clearer pathway. Also worked on farmers markets expansion back then, and bringing the Boston Bounty Bucks program to more and more farmers markets throughout the city in terms of access to produce, and making sure that we're addressing areas of food insecurity and localized food deserts. And at the time, that was if folks remember, that was sort of a period of time of some significant efforts in expanding farmers markets to more of our neighborhoods outside of the downtown. Two particular projects that were food oriented for me at least, and that I was proud of. One, the Fowler Clark Epstein Farm in Mattapan, and just the preservation of that phenomenal historic farmstead and its return to an exemplary current and future use as the home of the Urban Farming Institute. And to think that when I got engaged, it was to deny, at the time I oversaw inspectional services, it was to deny an emergency demolition permit that the estate had filed to take down the barn. And now to go back there and see how it is being used and preserved, and training that current and next generation of urban farmers of Boston is just fantastic. And then secondly, figuring out how to get Higher Ground Farm on top of the Boston Design Center. And that was a fascinating project as Boston's first urban rooftop farm. I know there are a few others now at Boston Medical Center and elsewhere, but that was an interesting first permitting foray involving both inspectional services and Boston Fire Department, because they had composting on top of the roof, and bringing what is a pretty large scale urban farm to the top of the Boston Design Center. learned about seagull nesting and how farm habitat is also places where seagulls want to raise their chicks, and what are the sensitive ways of avoiding being attacked on a roof, while philosophically trying to bring urban farming and agriculture into Boston in real ways that both allow folks to participate in their food system as well as grow fresh produce seasonally over time in Boston. So greatly. So again, it predates Office of Food Justice, but there was a lot going on in those early years in my time here around food and access and sustainability writ large. Stayed around for a year under Mayor Walsh, and then wanted to return to the private sector. Joined a firm called Arup, which is a global engineering, design, and consulting firm headquartered in London. I most recently oversaw their East Coast operations, so our offices in Boston, New York, New Jersey, DC, and Chicago. So about 750 odd consultants and engineers. And in relation to food, one of the expertise that we provide was large-scale assessments and strategy around resilience, in particular urban resilience and sustainability programs. We were the knowledge partners for the Rockefeller 100 Resilient Cities network, and created the Resilient Cities Index and Framework, which really identified key themes and attributes of cities around resilience, which includes access to food and access to urban agriculture and places to grow. So a broad appreciation for the role that food justice and food systems have in urban livability and sustainability. And then, have been good friends with the mayor for a long time, and the opportunity for this role and presenting itself is both overseeing the EEOS cabinet and as the city's first chief climate officer, which in my mind is the, for me, it's a legacy job for me. Really excited to be joining the city at this period in time where we're in a decade truly of implementation. There's a lot going on in terms of of citizen activism, of partnerships, and of attention to our changing climate and the necessity for building Boston and evolving Boston to be decarbonized, just, resilient, and sustainable for all, and making sure that that is a lived experience in every corner of the city. So excited to be working with the mayor in that capacity. One of the remits of this new role will be pulling together a climate cabinet of my fellow cabinet chiefs in the city that have direct policy and programmatic implementation around climate action. And so this will be a place where we can talk more broadly about food justice and all of the other issues that are nested in climate action, and make sure that programs like OFJ and Grow Boston are coordinated and aligned in the right direction. So obviously one of the things I've been doing over the last 2 months on the job is working with and learning from Eliza and her team on what's working and what the direction of travel is for OFJ. Really excited to see where food overall and the focus on food access and food justice has gone in Boston. Very much supportive of the 4 strategic goals that have been developed along with Grow Boston around building an equitable access and distribution system, in particular for our food insecure communities in Boston, better leveraging our city procurement processes around access to local produce from regional producers, and in particular from BIPOC producers, increasing food recovery. I think food waste in general just doesn't get enough attention, and making sure that we're recovering as much as possible before it goes to composting. And making sure that our food systems are efficient, both the public and private sector. And then lastly, increasing, as I started from in my first stint, increasing food production in the neighborhoods, whether or not it's in community gardens or raised beds or rooftop farms, and making sure that people are trained in being able to produce more of their own food. So I think, very worthy goals. Citywide impact obviously is a goal, but a particular focus on the 5 neighborhoods with the highest rates of food insecurity, being Mattapan, Dorchester, Roxbury, East Boston, and Hyde Park. And now we're seeing that as well in pockets of Roslindale. And I wanted in particular, the vast majority of the work that the city of Boston does is in partnership with community organizations in the private sector and nonprofit sectors. I think that is particularly the case in the Office of Food Justice. So I did want to take a moment to thank all of you, for your wisdom and guidance and support and delivery partnership. We couldn't do what what we're able to do in terms of getting resources and access and education and programming to the residents and constituents in Boston without your active involvement and support. So want to continue to thank you for that, and invite you to continue to shape us on this journey as we move forward. I think as folks know, we have sort of a July 1st fiscal year, so looking a bit backwards and then a bit forwards. Proud of where OFJ and Grow Boston have gone over the last fiscal year, really defining those strategic goals, developing implementation plans and KPIs. As I know you've heard from Eliza, we spent a lot of time on team building and growing. So we're now up to 6 full-time permanent staff in OFJ, which is a 100% increase from where it was only 2 years ago. So it may sound like a small and highly capable team, but it's also a lot bigger in terms of the impact that we can have. Working with all of you on expanding the access to fresh food at lower subsidized costs. So the coupon program that was distributed through 25 community partners this year, with almost 90% of the coupons being redeemed for produce in the city of Boston. Grants to our community outreach leaders to provide holistic education in accessing nutrition programs and making sure that all eligible Boston residents are able to participate in programs that they're eligible for. And then really partnering with Grow Boston, as we talked about, around in particular the low-income households in food insecure neighborhoods, and prioritizing 150 raised bed gardens in those neighborhoods to bring direct control of food access to those constituents. Looking forward a bit, we have one more hire, I think, to make, and then for the first time in 4 or 5 years, OFJ will be fully staffed. So hopefully this fall it'll be we'll have all hands on deck. Our food rescue assessment is expected to be released this fall, and we're excited to see the results from that and move forward with how we can better organize our city departments and our partners to make sure that we are capturing as much of a food recovery as possible. I think most folks on the call are probably aware of the Food Hub and Network Food Resilience Storage and Distribution Center that's in the works, but the project at 30 Northampton using over $2 million in ARPA funding to create a really interesting, innovative model to allow for food recovery and distribution within our existing partnership networks. And continuing implementation of our good food purchasing ordinance, and BPS is hard at work on the latest baseline, and I think we're going to be able to show a lot of significant progress there. Expanding our Double Up Food Bucks program and making sure that we're actually expanding to a few more grocery stores and places that's available in Boston. And then lastly, farmers markets, and again returning to a theme from my first tour of duty. Just making sure that we have farmers markets and community partners and focus on accessibility and affordability for folks throughout the city. So those are some of our priorities looking forward. But again, I'd add, I welcome your input and want to begin a conversation where I appreciate you all have been in the delivery mode and the strategy mode for far longer than I have, but want to be supportive and a resource to you all. To sound out additional ways that we can be helpful, or policy and regulatory changes that need to happen at the state or federal level, and places where we can be a force for the change that we seek. But I greatly look forward to working with you all going forward. So with that, I'll turn it back to Kawana, and we'll open it up for questions for the remainder of 40 minutes.
Thank you, Brian. We're super thrilled to have you. Now, as Brian mentioned, we'll open the floor up for questions and comments. I'd just like to ask that you raise your hand using the raise your hand feature, or you can type your questions in the chat box, and we will address them in the order that they are received. Also, if you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself and the organization that you're representing, and keep your comments under 2 minutes, but I don't actually imagine that that would be an issue here, since we're not like packed to the max. So please feel free to raise your hand. Oh.
First question is always the hardest one to get. We should issue like a prize. Oh, Kim. All right.
Oh, okay, Kim. Okay, you should be able
Hi.
to unmute yourself.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. I'm
Good
Kim
afternoon.
Barbosa Owens, and I work for the Center for Faith, Art, and Justice. And my colleague sitting next to me is the ED,
Linda Karpachik.
and we are happy to be included in this listening session. And we welcome you, Brian, and look forward to working with you in the not too distant future. I also want to say thank you to all of you who joined today, but most importantly, Eliza, thank you for all the help you've given us too. Okay,
Thank you, Kim.
I
Thank
was
you, Linda.
first.
Thank you.
Come on, I see a couple of hands. I'm not sure who was first.
Oh, okay, Carolyn.
Hi, I'm Carolyn Reeves. I'm with the brand new Charlesgate Farmers Market. Good afternoon, everybody. It's great to be part of this community, and welcome to Chief Swett. We're a brand new market, and we are really looking to expand into this space. It's been really overwhelming just starting the market, and Eliza's been so helpful there. But you know, we're wondering in our next season how we can get help in terms of offering access to more communities, and particularly the Fenway. And we really just need help. This is a community project. We're an environmental organization. So it's really a stretch for us. And the learning curve has been super steep, but we really want to open access. And so if anybody can help us or mentor us in terms of moving into our second season, we're open till October 13th, but then after that, you know, we really want to start planning early so that next year we can include all the things that y'all do so well.
Great.
Thank
Well,
you.
First off, Carolyn, thank you for starting one of the newer farmers markets in Boston and taking that on. That's excellent. Eliza, do you want to come in and talk a bit about some of the support and guidance?
Sure. Yeah, Caroline, that was very generous of you in terms of our support. I think we, want to make sure we can support within the capacity that we have, and do so that in ways that each year, like, things get easier, not harder, and more streamlined. So, I mean, I think, I really appreciate the way that you frame that. And I think there are opportunities where we can be building more connections around mentorship across markets. It's something we've talked about doing, and especially in the future, as we'll be running a planning process for farmers markets across the city of Boston farmers market ecosystem to help co-develop a more sustainable approach to addressing affordability at farmers markets. And some of my goals in co-designing this really have to do with building stronger ties between the markets. It's something we hear from the markets all the time, because the way that the markets in Boston are structured, there's a lot of autonomy, and the flip side of that is people can feel isolated and maybe not as resourced. And so, our role in sort of convening folks and helping people share best practices, as well as like identify patterns where they're having challenges with city processes or city or state, any to kind of, but I think the mentorship is a really good flag, and that's something I'd like to, in the fall, to sort of like do some of that building. I know there's a couple of other markets on this call, so folks may have thoughts about that, but yeah, I know that it takes many years, and a number of markets have started in like fits and stops in different neighborhoods, because it can take so long to build the muscle and the sales, frankly, and many other things. So we're in this journey with you.
If I can, I'm sorry, I don't mean to take too much time, but The other thing that our market is very interested in is that we're interested in becoming what some people call a third place, sort of a community center, so that the transactional part of the market is very important to us and we want to support our vendors. But we also want to use the space as a community gathering place. And it's at the nexus of a number of different neighborhoods. And we also, because we're an environmental group sponsoring it, we're looking for pop-up environmental opportunities. So 2 weeks ago, we had Beyond Plastics bring a woman to our market and just sort of circulate among the people and then give pop-up, little chats through the market. And Chief Swett, we would love to ask for your help in sending us some people to the Charlesgate Farmers Market. It's a Sunday, so unfortunately, it's not in the work week. It's Sundays 11 to 2, but we really are looking for pop-up environmental chats in the market. We have live music and we have a microphone for that. So it would be great. So we'd love to figure out how to work with your office to use our farmers market as both a site of sustainability, of food justice, and as an environmental education center. So thanks if you could, if we could arrange that.
No, I think that's a great ask, Carolyn, and we'll, Kawana will be in touch. I think that immediately coming to mind is just making sure you guys have access to our Green New Deal network organizations, because those are folks that are always looking for opportunities to, to talk to folks about their programs and policies and engage with Boston residents. So I think we can certainly help with that connectivity. I'd also offer up to your farmers markets and all the other ones on the call, opportunities for us to be supportive from a media and communications perspective is certainly an ongoing conversation we want to have. We have our own social media channels within the cabinet, as well as, can push citywide social media channels on availability and timing, and, appreciate that all the farmers markets have different schedules and days of the weeks. And, one of the low hanging fruit is just making sure that people are aware of the cadence. And I know it's hard being a new one, being added to that cycle of making sure people are aware what day of the week, you guys are on and available. So.
Many thanks. Many thanks.
Melissa, did you have a question? You had raised your hand and then I think it fell down. Okay.
Oh, no, I was just offering my clap of support for all the folks on the call. So eager to hear more questions as well.
Great. Thank you so much. Luz, you should be able to unmute yourself now.
Thank you, and thank you, everybody. My name is Luz Colon. I work for DSNI. Sorry, my camera is not working in this computer. We do run a Daily Food Hub, where we provide food to our community, which is Roxbury and North Dorchester. Every week, we work with the Food Project on the farmers market program and farms. We have farms and gardens and raised bed. My question will be, how can we better support the winter markets? Because that's where I find where people are struggling. Holidays are during that during that season, and we ran out of support during that season. So how can we better support, as food insecurity in our community? How can we better support during the winter months our residents, our communities, and our farmers markets?
Sure. That's a great question, Luz. Lisa, do you want to come in on winter market programming?
Yeah, sure. Luz, thanks for flagging that. I've heard a few of the same question in the past few months, but haven't talked to you about it specifically. So I'd actually really love to hear your thoughts and like Danielle's thoughts moving forward. I think we have a real opportunity with this, sort of mentioned this planning process we'll be doing this fall with the whole farmers market ecosystem, including folks who have been using the farmers market coupons and the markets themselves, etc., to sort of take a step back and think about like, what do we need to, because what you're talking about specifically is that niche of affordability at markets, and like where the current, the program we've had for the last 3 years maybe served certain functions, but had drawbacks to it. And I think one of the drawbacks was, from my perspective, is that the operational intensity was such that, like, the past couple of years, there were some trade-offs of like, couldn't we do support winter markets, which is like the operations of like printing the coupons and I would say I was prioritizing making sure all of the vendors got paid promptly versus like other programming that might have stretched us too thin. And it's a need. We want to be able to support both communities that already have a winter market, which is a few, and the ones that don't yet, to be like, how can we make this citywide, accessible citywide? If we were to do something like that, which I know they're in the past, our office has supported a little bit with winter markets. So I'm hoping we can think kind of broadly with this planning process, where it's like, yes, the core sort of like abundance that we have in the summer, but like, is there a year-round or winter plus some sort of shoulder season approach that both supports the markets, gets people fresh food at as much of the year as possible, and continues to provide those connections to producers who are willing and able to come into Boston. So let's keep talking, and we want sort of your suggestions and input on that.
Yeah, Luz, were there specific ideas you had in mind on winter market?
Yeah, I mean, yes, we in the past, because we focus on climate resiliency in general, but we do have a Dudley Food Hub, which has been run for, I think, 7 years already. We have been able to capture some grants to help the farmers market in the winter, created our own coupons for the residents and stuff like that. But any kind of help to continue supporting our food insecurity, goals in our community are welcome, as well as any education on climate resiliency, because we do work on that as well.
Great.
So I just wanted to put it out there, because as you're asking, these are the things that we do encounter. We've been doing this for a while in our community. We get here 300 people every Friday looking for a bag of food, and that comes through the YMCA and the Greater Boston Food Bank. And we do have the 300 farmers market, which, I go twice and they're gone, to the market, and they're gone. So the need is great. I know we can't help everybody, but if we can do a continuous process, then that helps a little bit as food is increasing in cost.
Yep. No, that's a great point, Luz. And I should have emphasized that, one of the things that I love about the farmers markets programs is the regular touch points that you all have with the residents and citizens of Boston. And we need to do, as you mentioned, sort of the climate resilience focus, of your group as well. And we need to take advantage of those touch points to make sure that the farmers markets customers are aware of all of the programs in the city of Boston around climate, whether or not it's climate resilience work that we're doing and access that folks have to resources and resiliency planning, or BCCE and access to the community choice aggregation and 100% green power at no additional cost, or some of our energy efficiency programs. Just being able to use those as sort of touch points, and to be able to make sure that folks are aware of all the services and incentives available to them.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate that.
Any other questions, comments, priorities for us going forward? Big ideas we should be looking at? Charles?
Hi, Chief. Thank you so much. I'm with the trustees of reservations. Fortunate enough to manage a stewardship team with about 100 garden coordinators. We have 56 community gardens, 1,600 plots. We're looking to expand that to 2,000. No specific questions, but we'd love to welcome you and potentially have a site visit and just a conversation about acquiring plots. I have a couple emails into the Boston Planning and Development Authority. I have an old colleague who recently went there. And some of our gardeners are, they have questions about trash and composting, and there's some plots that are producing excess amount of food. We'd love to get that into the neighborhood and different outlets. But we're excited to have you. My boss couldn't make it here today, but if you're willing to join us over the course of the next 8 months, we'd be happy to host you and kind of start the dialogue.
That'd be great. I appreciate the invite. I have a catch up with Katie the Herities on Friday, and obviously I worked with her when she was secretary closely, and actually the merger with the South End Lower Roxbury Land Trust, joining the trustees happened in my first watch in City Hall, and it's just a critical. The network of community gardens, in the city of Boston is just a critical asset for residents and constituents of the city of Boston.
Yes, sir. Glad to hear it. I can connect. I have your email. I'll send something, and we'll see where it goes from there.
Sounds great.
But
Thanks,
thank
Charles.
you, and congratulations.
Any other questions? Big ideas? All right. Well, I'll wrap this by saying that one, I think hopefully it's come across, but I'm both specifically interested in food access and food justice, as well as interested in that connectivity to the broader climate and environmental justice movement, and how food access and food justice is both a critical part of it and one of those touch points where we can make sure that folks have information and are aware of all of the services and support that we can provide. But I just want to thank you all for your partnership. We will be launching the city's climate action plan update for the first time under Mayor Wu this fall, really with a focus on this decade being a decade of implementation, and defining and looking at what success by 2030 looks like, and then making sure we're all in alignment of what we need to do to get there. So we will be in touch over the coming weeks. Food justice and food access, and the opportunities around climate sensitive agriculture, as well as the impacts of climate change on urban ag, will certainly be areas of emphasis. But thank you for your work and your ongoing support and expansion of our collective work together on food justice in the city of Boston. Kawana, do you want to wrap?
Yes, thank you, Brian. So I just wanted to also thank you all for being here, and for all the wonderful work that you do to get food to our community, and your great ideas as well. I dropped my name and my information in the chat, so that if you want to leave additional comments, I can be reached here. And I'll also be following up this meeting with just a thank you email, as well as a survey. So if you wouldn't mind, when you receive that, please take full advantage of completing it. But again, thank you so much for your time today, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your afternoon.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining. Thanks, Chief.
Thanks.